Good evening, and welcome to this virtual edition of Group Theory presented by Black Lens. As many of you may know, Black Lens is part of Milwaukee Film, and since 2014, we've been presenting films by emerging and veteran Black filmmakers at the annual Milwaukee Film Festival and throughout the year at the Oriental Theater. Thanks for joining us on this Zoom conversation, and also for those of you who are watching this through YouTube, through the Milwaukee Film channel, we appreciate you joining in. As we continue with this conversation, there's going to be some opportunities for you to weigh in. So we'll be the only ones talking, but if there's something that you want to share at any point of this conversation, please feel free to write your comments or your questions in the chat. And so I mentioned Groove Theory, and since we began this series in 2017, Groove Theory has been known for its musical presentations through live bands and DJs. And since we're now at a stay-at-home order and we're mandated to physically distance from each other, we have decided to instead provide you all with a conversation about music. So I'm sure by now that many of you have seen the Erykah Badu versus Jill Scott battle that happened this past Saturday. And it was a long, yet lovely experience where these two titans reminded us of why we fell in love with their music and what inspired their artistry. We've reached out to three of Milwaukee's finest soul singers to talk about the battle and the legacy of these women. And we'll also have a chance, hopefully, to talk about what inspires their artistry. So I will let them introduce themselves. So who would like to go first?
I'll go.
Sure.
Hello, everybody that's tuning in. My name is Be Free, and I am a singer, songwriter, producer, musician here in the city of Milwaukee. I have a great working relationship with lots of the folks on this panel already. I've had an opportunity to work with Groove Theory in 2017, and I am very much a fan of both of the ladies that we saw perform on Saturday, so I'm excited to share my take on that. Being a neo-soul and R&B artist myself, definitely was something that I took well to, so I'm happy to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Element, and I am 1/3 of the former group Black Elephant. I am excited to be here. I looked at the battle from a hip hop perspective, hip hop soul perspective, and I know that this is going to be a very lively conversation. And I look forward to hearing the opinions of the other women on the panel and hearing some of your questions. And I'm excited to see what everybody has to say.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. I am Robin Reese. I'm a woman that wears many hats in the city, so I'm not sure who's tuning in. So you may know me from a few different avenues, being, commercial real estate, currently running a business improvement district, working a lot with small businesses. I personally did a music series in the bid last year with Be Free. I was able to bring some artists there, and Be Free was one of the performers in that. So I've always been tied into music, be it me being on stage as a performer or in the background and booking or doing management with bands and artists. Love the whole artist scene in Milwaukee, from film to music to other performing arts to painting, graffiti, anything related to arts, you can probably find my hand in some kind of way. I tuned in mostly as a fan. I wasn't looking at it as anything analytical. I've actually been following all the verses, so I know for this one in particular, a lot of people, this was their first one. I've been watching the majority of all of them just because it's something that has kicked off since this quarantine and has given us something to do. So I'm looking forward to discussing that and discussing these awesome ladies.
Thank you. And I've had the privilege and pleasure to see you all perform, and it really means a lot to me. I say that on behalf of the Black Lens team, to have you all as part of this conversation tonight. So, as we learn about what your feelings were about the battle, hopefully they'll get to learn more about you all. And so I want to begin the conversation by talking about, just asking you, when did you first become aware of the music of Erykah Badu and Jill Scott?
I'll start since I was last time, I guess. For me, it had to been, well, Erykah was out first. So
Yeah.
Erykah was the one that I knew first and who I became a fan of first. And maybe I was thinking about that before I came on here. Like, well, maybe that's where my bias comes from because I've known her longer. Like, I feel like I know her. So Erykah, when her first album dropped, I was in college at UWM.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it because, like, a lot of those songs, when I hear those songs, they take me back to a specific place and time. But in particular, she's one of the artists that I cover to this day. Anybody that sees me, they know I'm probably gonna do Tyrone.
Sure.
But back in the day at juniors, I was doing The Other Side of the Game and songs from that first album, Baduism. So that was it. Came out, I believe, in '97. My first child was born in '98, so I can remember being pregnant and just really relating to that particular Other Side of the Game was like my song. But I just felt like I could connect to it. All the lyrics, everything just kind of coincided with what I was dealing with at the time in my relationship and carrying a child and all that kind of stuff. So.
For sure.
Well, my first introduction to Erykah Badu was obviously On and On. And at the time, I was studying the teachings of the Nation of Gods and Earth. So that song was so appropriate for what was going on in my life.
Yes.
I actually thought it was one of the most incredible things I had ever heard because the teachings are so complex and so difficult for non-members to understand. And she made it so simple. She cut it down to its bare bones, and people who had no idea of the nation's teachings loved that song. So for me, it was a nice bridge to show me that even though I was growing and developing as a person, I could add that to my artistry and people could accept it. It would be okay. It just had to be written really, really, really well so that people could understand it, who weren't in the nation, and people who were in the nation felt that it represented the teaching. So for me, that was a huge door that opened when I heard On and On, and the reception of the song nationwide showed me that she was the real deal at that time, because you had artists like Wu-Tang who would quote different things in the nation, and if you didn't understand it, it was because you weren't in the nation. It was so complex and so layered, but she made it very simple. And that was one of the things I loved about her. And to this day, I can still hear certain things throughout her music that most people don't necessarily pick up on because I know the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just blown away from that point on.
Wow. I didn't realize at a young age, because obviously Erykah came out when I was a little girl, but I didn't realize at the time the magnitude of that song. So that's really cool element that you mentioned, all of those different teachings and things that she kind of tucked in there under the music. Like as I got older and started to understand a little bit more about these things, it's like, oh, this is such a multifaceted, such a multi-layered piece of art here that just made me love her even more.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following her since she came out with Baduism as well. I didn't realize what neo soul was though at the time. Like that was around like the late '90s, and it had just kind of become like being pushed to the forefront with D'Angelo and all those other artists. So she was the first exposure that I had to that genre of music in general, and I was so blown away by how relaxing it was and the mixture of jazz and all these elements of R&B, and it kind of just became its own thing. So she was my very first example of what neo soul was. So I always carried that with me in general throughout like my influences and stuff that I listened to. When Jill came on the scene, however, my literal existence flipped 180 degrees the other way, because I was completely blown away by this woman and her stature. I already had a conception of what neo soul music was, but I had never seen anybody that looked like her before on TV and music videos. And not to mention, she was just absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. Like her sound, like I was completely enamored by everything that she was, and she completely drew me in with her words. And I found out more about her as I went on in time, that she was a poet. And I'm like, oh, well, I write poetry too, technically, because I'm a lyricist. It was just all of these things that I didn't realize that I could develop about my own artistry generally came from me watching examples of Jill coming up in her career. So both of those women I definitely keep at the helm of being like the queens as far as like this neo soul thing is concerned, even though they kind of play in and out of genres. But Jill definitely was the person who was responsible for my musical and artistic awakening, if you would say.
For sure. And Element, you were talking about Badu's On and On, really introducing people to the teachings of the nations of the gods and the earths.
Yeah.
And a lot of those teachings, a lot of the a lot of the vocabulary that emerges from them, had been in hip hop for quite some time. And this was the first time you really heard an R&B singer incorporate that into her lyrics.
Exactly. And for me, it was one of those things that was kind of shocking, because you've heard that everybody hears, oh, peace, God. It
Right.
becomes a part of the lingo, but people don't necessarily associate it with the nation. It just, if you're not from New York, you just assume that's how people from New York talk because it's so popular. And when I heard her use these lyrics in this song to bring the nation to the forefront, not play it to the back and kind of try to sneak it under the table. The entire song was about the nation and the nation's teaching and numerology and the Black man, and you're being fearful of us like you're fearful of God. You say you don't believe in God, but you fear us just the same. Those types of things. Most people had never heard of the Nation of Gods and Earth. They've heard of the Nation of Islam,
Right.
but they hadn't heard of the Nation of Gods and Earths. And the teachings were not familiar to people, but they felt so comfortable with her lyrics that they not only embraced her, they embraced the song. So for me, walking around hearing this every day gave a confirmation that, okay, where you're growing to, you're going in the right direction, because there are people who represent you, not just in your city, but on a national scale. And those people are being accepted. And what they're trying to teach and the message that they're putting across is something that people won't push away from. It's something that can be acceptable to the masses. And Erykah, she did this in such a skilled, seamless way that people didn't even realize what she was doing when she was doing it. And that to me was just mind blowing. And it made me love her even more.
For sure. And my introduction to Badu was through the High School High soundtrack. Do you remember the cover of Your Precious Love she did with D'Angelo?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's when I first started to read about her in various magazines. They would do some small write-ups, right before On and On came out. And then when Baduism hit, back when we used to walk around with Discmans, that stayed in the Discman. Because
people don't know that she got discovered by Kadar when she was opening up for D'Angelo.
Right.
So that relationship is so beautiful to me. When I see her and D'Angelo perform, even just separately, just knowing that they were linked in that way made me love both of them even more, because they're both so talented.
Yeah. And I followed, she was pretty much like the main person I was following throughout '97. And that was also the year, Biggie, who we lost untimely, put out Life After Death, his double album. And then also Wu-Tang put out their double album. And, Master P put out Ghetto Dope. All of that was going on at the time. And, Erykah Badu as this new artist, she was able to rise, right at that level and, really captivate a lot of people who listen to a variety of different music. And with Jill Scott, I first learned about her after You Got Me came out, because they actually, the Roots, they would do like, at least one show a year in Milwaukee at the Rave or at Summerfest. And I remember seeing her live for the first time, performing that song with them. So that's how I learned about her. And then when I saw the singles Love, Rain, and Getting in the Way, it was, I was like, oh yeah, that's who that was. And, I was checking for her heavy. And when she came out with Who is Jill Scott, Words and Sounds Volume 1. Man, that, just like with Baduism, I just thought that album was perfection. But Robin, Element, what are your thoughts on Jill in terms of how you were introduced to her?
Jill, as I'm sitting here thinking and I'm listening to you, I don't really have a like Erykah. I have a blatant, clear memory and things I can tie to it. I can't say the same for Jill. I sang her songs as well, and when you just said that, I was like, well, maybe that's when I was introduced to her, because that sounds about right. But similar to what Be Free was saying, from the moment that I was, though, she always stood out just for her. She has a beautiful voice, and then just thinking about just the songs similar to Eric, both of them always have like super deep lyrics, something that get right in your heart, something that was relatable, and something that I liked her as an artist, just not even really I believe I became a fan of her. I wasn't an instant fan of hers, even though I liked her work. She wasn't someone that I followed as closely right away, but I've always liked the music and the songs that she's done. And then, like I said, over the years, she's definitely one that I've added to my shows when I'm, covering music.
For sure.
Well, I loved Getting in the Way. I have an older sister who is kind of the queen shouldn't swing, if you know what I mean, person. So that to me was kind of a bridge between my sister's mentality and where I was at the time. So I introduced my sister. I said, have you heard of this girl named Jill Scott? And she has this song that say queen shouldn't swing, and I'm gonna get some Vaseline and all that stuff you said. So that to me was my first memory of Jill Scott. But then you have Long Walk. And for me, that kind of sealed her fate for me. Right around that same time, India Ari was out. So we had all three of these sisters at the same time representing so different ways. Yeah. So much talent, so many different ways, representing so many different types of Black women. And it was a beautiful Black girl magic gumbo going on. So I was just in heaven when all three of them were out. But Jill, my first memory of Jill was Getting in the Way and having a conversation with my sister. And she just stuck. Her voice just stuck. It wasn't the most soulful Jill Scott song, but you could clearly tell that she had talent.
Right. And with both Erykah Badu and Jill Scott, a couple things. One, the reason I was so drawn to them was because I was and still am a big fan of the Roots, and they co-signed them. And I was like, yo, let's go. Let's get it. Yep. And then also with them is that they're so multifaceted. They don't just present like just one public side and, whatever. Throughout their songs, they represent, multiple sides of themselves. Element like what you were saying, with Getting in the Way. They certainly, each possesses a high level of consciousness, but at the same time, you step to them, they'll let you know.
Right. Like Black women everywhere.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I think that's a good way to, just talk about the battle specifically. And, this isn't, necessarily, just, being analytical, just breaking down this and that or the other. Just your genuine observations of what you made of it.
Well, I felt like for anybody who has been following the Versus series from the beginning, like Robin mentioned, I think there's kind of an expectancy that was developed along the way, especially when we knew like there were certain time perimeters that we've been seeing and sound issues. So that was like, those are the two things that people came in knowing, like, I know they better start on time because we know they're going to get cut off at their hour, or are they going to have a Teddy Riley moment? Those were the two things that everybody came in thinking. So I was among those people that was super, super excited, but also started to get a wee bit frustrated after I looked at the clock and I was like, it's like 10, 15 minutes and it doesn't happen yet. So I was like, what is going on? And then they started playing whole songs. instead of the other versus battles where people would play like a minute and a half or just like a verse and chorus. So it was super, super weird to get adjusted to at first. But I personally kind of just took on the whole moniker of like, you know what, I'm just gonna go with the flow. Like I'm going anywhere. If they get cut off, I'm logging right back on. So let me just see where this is going. I'm gonna keep drinking my wine. And after a while, I kind of just got settled into the vibe that they were creating. And I felt that was really interesting. That even though they've already said from the beginning that it wasn't really seen as a competition between the two ladies, I did start to appreciate what they were saying in between like their songs. Like I didn't know, that there was this like maybe kind of like an animosity moment between the two regarding the song, or when Erykah came backstage and wanted to talk to Jill and she like to her, she didn't know, she thought she blew her off. It was like I learned a lot about the dynamics of their relationship, but also it was just really cool to hear the backstories about things and just go kind of down memory lane, because every one of these songs for both of them, like Robin said, I can definitely pinpoint different moments or different feelings or vibes that created when I first heard them. So that was my overall, and I felt the vibe really shift with everybody. Everybody kind of started really anxiously and antsy, but everybody kind of just mellowed out. And by the end of the night, everybody was like in the palm of their hands, who was still watching, that is,
Well, I felt like it was, instead of a versus, the only experience with the verses that I've had prior to this was Teddy Riley. That was a hot mess. So for me, like the first one and then the second one, I couldn't get on. I got kicked off. So for me, this was going to be my first experience. I knew about the other ones because my husband watches them. But for me, this was the only one that I was really interested in. So, you got kids, you have family, you have to make time for stuff that you are really wanting to do, even though it's a quarantine. So for me, I said, okay, what I need you to do is take those babies in another room. I sat up here with some wine. I watched the verses, but what I was expecting was not what I got.
Right.
And the reason I'm saying that is because anybody who's ever seen the Block Party, the Dave Chappelle Block Party, the clip that we watched today, there's a moment where someone asks Jill, are you nervous? Because Erykah Badu is going to be out there. And she kind of looks like, you do know what I do. I'm good. I'm good. I'm Jill Scott. Like, no, yeah. I'm good. Trust me, I'm good.
Yeah.
So even though Jill tried to make it seem like it was people who started this beef, there was something there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking forward to, seeing who was going to turn it up and who was going to play this hit and play that hit. But it really just seemed like it was two friends.
Right.
Were just appreciating each other's music, and we just got to sit there and listen to them and watch them do it. But I wanted some oomph, and
you wanted the tea.
Some friend moments, and that's okay too. But I wanted a little bit more, and I wanted hit after hit after hit, which I didn't get. And, I guess when you're a songwriter, and I know this, y'all know this, you have your favorites. It don't matter what other people's favorites are. What songs, where you were when you wrote that song and when you recorded it in that moment, and that song might be special to you. So it might be a throwaway to somebody else, but you want to play songs that you feel strongly about. And I think that's what they did. They gave us a little teaser because, we have these songs that are our favorites, but they played their songs too, songs that they appreciate. And I can value that from an artist perspective, but as a fan, I wanted that heat all the way through.
Right.
Well, for me, I clearly saw it way different. I did see and felt the beef.
Did you?
Well, to your point, Element, before I even go into the versus battle, the rules of engagement for versus is, number one, you can't even be on there unless you have 20 hits. That's the first thing. So it is supposed to be exactly what you said. Not that we expected it, because that's not what versus is. Versus isn't, let me pick the song off of my album. If they went along with how it's supposed to go, Like even with you said you saw the Babyface and Teddy, even with you said you couldn't get on the second one, but even with the Mess Up, it was very like, oh, you played that, so then I gotta play this. Oh, you playing, oh, what can I play to top that? Like it's supposed to be that. I saw Lil Jon and
T-Pain.
And to me, they were like the best thus far because of the energy that they had. And it was like, oh, what? Oh yeah, okay, I got one for that. What? Like it's supposed to be thought. So you have your list of songs, but the order is going to be determined by what the other one plays.
Right.
Yeah, so that is how it's supposed to go. So I was definitely expecting that. But a lot of people, and I'll be the one to say it, I'm always gonna be that one. From what I saw, even from the articles, oh, I was so happy, and it's just beautiful to see this sisterhood. And I got friends. I don't need to see sisterhood on TV. I got an actual sister that I see sisterhood in, and I feel like people want that, so they created that. That is not what was going on there. And if y'all didn't feel the energy, like to me, what I saw before you get to the music was Jill trying to be overly not, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, I'm just so happy to be, oh. And Erykah was, yeah, I think I'm beautiful too. Yeah, I like this shirt too. Yeah, Oh, really? Oh, you having a bad day?
There was some distance.
What's wrong? But I'm just saying, people act like it was not, to me, when people were like, oh, it was like two friends talking, I totally didn't get that. I would have liked that, because I feel like the dialogue would have been better, and that would have given us something more no matter what the songs were, because I believe that was the best part of Babyface and Teddy when they got it together, the stories that we were hearing, and both of them working on Bobby Brown's album, and Michael Jackson stuff. Like you were finding information about them. They can take little shots, although Babyface was a little more shady, but you could tell like the relationship was there and it was a dialogue. So I was expecting that, because I kept saying it was boring. And people were like, oh, well, what were you expecting? This is the type of music that they play. And I said, no, I'm not speaking on the music. I know their music very well. I know they're neo-soul artists. I know that. I'm not speaking on the music. I feel like the boring part was their engagement with each other. And until it got to the end, so, oh, it got good at the end. I'm like, yeah, that's 3 hours later. So then at 3 hours later, when we finally get the grits, everybody like it's kumbaya, but that wasn't how the whole verses went. So when we got to grits and we got to Jill playing Tyrone for her, I thought that was dope. Like I said, now we on the last song, but I've been sitting here for 3 hours watching them. Like Erykah, like she was ready to go at any moment, and if she was even the one that said, like, can we just do 2 more songs and be done? I was like, am I the only one that saw that? It was like she was like having this great old time, and the clock just going. But yeah, I can get off of here at any moment now.
Because she had an after party to do, right?
Right. And that was her after party. She had all the energy. She was on live the next day. I saw her yesterday, and that was the other thing. I don't follow Jill on social media, but I follow Erykah. She always posts, she always go live. So I was expecting this energy. That's why I said, like, that is not a friendship. There's definitely something, because that's not the energy I know Ida had. And when she got on her show, when she got off, then she was Erykah. But while she was there, it was like,
pretty standoffish.
You a mess.
I mean, it's the truth.
There was something there.
I ain't gonna say beef, but it definitely wasn't a good energy.
Watching it though, the vibe that was given was Sister Girl. I
think it took a minute to get there, maybe like 2 hours in.
Well, even if it was, obviously you feel like it was an act, that's what.
No, I don't think it was an act. I'm saying it took a minute after they warmed up and started talking, but it wasn't that from the onset. I believe it took longer, like from when they first started to the 3 hours later when they ended. I believe the energy, like had they gone another hour, then I think it would have been I think then it would have been good. But at first couple,
They had to
It
work
took them a minute to warm up to. I didn't feel like they were like when people were like, oh, they homegirls. No, they ain't probably talked in like a year or 2 or 5. Like they're definitely not homegirls.
Yeah, because I think over time, they were, they started to talk about that, every once in a while, they'll try to see how they, if there's any space for them to do any collaborations. And Bill Scott was talking about, people just have busy schedules and they just can't coordinate. And then when Jill Scott played "Watching Me," which is spoken word piece, Erykah was asking her, what inspired her, to pursue writing, and there was that conversation, and I think that was a point where it started to open up.
Yeah.
And
got more personal.
For sure. What was the song? What were a song or a few songs that you were excited to hear throughout? And then what were some songs that you wish you could have heard but didn't get to hear?
I was actually expecting Erykah to play, like, I guess this would have been similar to the style that Robin mentioned, like how verses technically supposed to go. When Jill played her Robert Glasper song, I was expecting Erykah to counter that with her Robert Glasper song. So that would probably be one thing that I definitely
right. That's what they're supposed to do.
Right. Right. So I think after that, I was okay, this is just really just a free for all. So yeah, that's probably the one thing for me. I also would like to hear all of Green Eyes. That's another story.
You said all of it?
She only played the beginning part where it was just like the little honky tonk piano, and then she cut it off like, Fred. Like, I really wanted to hear the part where it really develops and the full band comes in and it changes keys or more minor. It's just, yeah. It's just such a long song that takes a long time to develop. But yeah.
I think with Jill, for the most part, well, both of them, I think they played a decent amount of songs that I expected I would have wanted to. One song by Jill that I always loved is the Whenever You're Around. So when she played that in the battle, that reminded me like, oh, that's my jam. I need to go play that again. Let me see. Of course they did, because they did. I think they did all of the, I guess, the hits, known songs per se. But then some of the other ones that, if you're a fan, that would be as popular or something they would do at a concert. And I'm just trying to think, because I'm like, I had intentionally, that's why I was going to look like, I need to look at the song list of what they actually played, but definitely even getting to the end. And it was like when was it The Way? Yeah, it was The Way.
Yeah.
Jill played. And then Erykah finally comes with Tyrone. And then it's like, okay, now it's cracking.
Now this is a battle.
Right. Now it's a battle, but they could have gone tit for tat like that the whole night. It was just like, I'm just gonna play something. Just play a song, because I can be totally honest and say, although I probably listened to all the albums, you get your songs and you play what you know or have playlists. It both definitely play songs that I ain't never heard of, or I probably might have heard once, but it wasn't. We both played stuff that I was like, what is that?
There is definitely.
Did you write that last night? When did it? What album was that on?
Yarimare Casa. People forgot all about that one.
Right.
Robin, thank you for posting that Apple Music playlist, FYI.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. You're welcome. And my friend, he does that for everyone. So cool. So each one of the versus battles, he makes a playlist with all the songs that they play on the battle, which is helpful because, like I said, I like to look after the fact and be able to see the list. So when the ones that were actual battles, like the Teddy Babyface, you can look and be like, oh, well, that beat that, but no, this beat this. And then you can actually really do a scorecard, because on the other ones, that's kind of how they work. Swiss and them, it's like, okay, well, that's 3 Teddy and 4 Babyface. So it actually were scoring based on, well, you played Remember the Time, even though Teddy didn't play that, he played some other stuff, but you played Remember the Time, and I played I don't know, whip appeal. So remember the time one type thing. So it was, I mean, I was very, very bored. I wanted more energy. It was a Saturday night. The sun still was up like now, and it was like real sleepy and slow. And I made a post. It was funny. Everybody laughed at. I said Erykah a gangster, like, you know, she just a G, and Jill over here talking like she talking to Lizelle. Oh yes. She had her He Loves Me Lizelle and E flat voice on like the whole night, and I was sitting there like, girl, I'm not your boyfriend, I'm over it. So that was wearing me out.
That was totally Erykah's vibe.
Yeah, Erykah was just over here like, and she had the Bruce Lee playing in the back. Tell me she ain't come to fight, and y'all acting like y'all just didn't notice all this stuff that was going on. Erykah had a whole vibe.
Yeah, because
Jill was all light, her light in her face. She had the whole light and glow. Erykah's was more dark. She got the movie playing back there. She had her. It was just a whole different energy.
Yeah, one of the versus battles was also RZA versus DJ Premier, and it was like Badu out RZA the RZA.
I can see that.
One of our viewers said that Erykah should have played Danger. I was just looking at the list that Robin put up. She actually did. I remember hearing that. It came after watching me.
You pulled it up. Okay.
Yeah.
What I noticed right off the bat, and I told my husband, he came in here, checked on me, and I said, it don't seem like Jill Scott is really, I don't know what she's doing, because every song that Erykah played was a song, and she would play something that totally like didn't make sense. So I'm sitting here and I'm going through it, and I'm like, okay, well, Erykah got 5. I guess I can give this one to Jill. You know, I'm scoring it back and forth because I never watched. This was my first one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, if I have, and I'm going round for round for round. Right. I'm like, this is a bloodbath.
Yes.
So
yes. Until Jill, I can't remember what Jill came with, and I said, "Oh, she done finally woke up."
It took a minute.
It took a while. Yeah.
Sleep.
Yeah.
I was bored. I'm like, okay, if I could just listen to Erykah Badu songs, if she's just gonna throw these throwaways. And I mean, it's not that Jill Scott has a throwaway. I mean, she's got an incredible voice.
Yeah, I think she was playing more of the deep cuts.
I don't know why. Because everybody loves them. I mean, if they're doing a concert, people are coming there for their hits. Yes, you want to hear an album cut every once in a while, but you want to hear your song.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hear your song.
Right. And that's what
I was over there with Erykah. This is how I look. I was just, like, a lot of the Erykah stuff, it was like, hey, and then Jill, you be like.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things about these versus battles, in terms of, you realize, how much about their catalogs, whoever's who, whether it's Babyface or Teddy Riley. What was interesting for me, even though, it took a while for Teddy Riley to get it together, it just made me, when I was listening to his songs, it was like, damn, Teddy Riley really had a vibe. And I wish
Teddy got cut.
Yeah. And, the way, with the whole New Jack Swing, sometimes I wish he didn't have that label, because I think it made it easy to dismiss, but Teddy came with it. He had some jams.
He had a lot of jams, but I don't believe that he did good on his song selection. So for some of the songs, like even for like Blackstreet got some cuts. He played a song from Blackstreet that I don't think nobody probably ever heard. He played a Michael Jackson song I never heard before. Like, you did this album with Mike. Of course he did great. Like, how did you not play Remember the Time? Like, it's a battle. You went on some personal stuff. Like, he played some good songs, but then he made some choices that were not, where Babyface, I feel, stayed consistent. He played the Tony Braxton. He played the Karen White. He played he played the cuts that everybody knew these was the cuts, and Teddy went off track.
Yeah, he even played the song live.
What made you play that?
Huh? He even played the song live. Babyface.
Pull out the guitar.
He played it. Yeah. But
I didn't see that battle, but you got to be careful, because I know Pharrell did some of Teddy Riley's stuff.
So, wait a minute. Did you? The most epic part of that was or one of them epic moments, because Babyface got all the Prince shade. Like I think he might have outshaded Prince that night. But he said, so Teddy played the Right Here remix by SWV. And so Babyface was like, you did that? Because I know who did that song.
Exactly.
And Teddy like, oh, the remix. He said, oh, remixes? We can do remixes on here? He said, oh, it don't matter because I don't do remixes.
Sips wine.
Yeah, I don't do remixes.
Go watch that battle. Y'all saying.
Not that it would have mattered anyway, you know.
You played a remix? You didn't produce that, fam? Like, why you didn't write it or nothing?
Yeah, because it was like, with the RZA versus DJ Premier battle, it was, I found myself like scoring each round. That wasn't really the case with me when I was listening to Erykah Badu and Jill Scott.
I don't think anybody was able to do that. I mean, you could go in hindsight maybe and do it, but every battle, even in the comments, people were doing it.
I did it because I ain't know no better.
No, but that's how it's supposed to. No, that is how it's supposed to go.
And it just turned into.
But I think people were so just sitting there like.
Yeah, I stopped. I was bored. I wasn't bored of the music. It just wasn't a competition.
On myself, because I was like, well, how many songs have they played? Because when they first started, like Be Free was saying earlier, when they started, first of all, they came on late, and I got thrown off immediately because initially on the you could get it on, if they're both on the same live, you can get it by going to either one of their pages. Right. So I started on Erykah's page, and she wasn't live, and Jill wasn't live, and I go back and I see people commenting saying that Jill was on, but then I'm like, Erykah live, so they both live. Separately. It should be on their live together. And I said, oh Lord, do they not know how to do it? We gonna do this again? Like, okay, we had to figure that out. So they finally get together in the same live. And then it still took them, it had to be almost 6:30, 6:25, 6:30 before they actually played a song. And then they both played the same song.
Say more about that. Please say more about that, about how the way it opened.
Oh, that was like, okay, I'm not even gonna say that. I get why and what the heck was it? Was it You Got Me?
You Got Me.
You Got Me, right. Mm-hmm. So I get why they both, like, why Jill would come back playing that, because okay, so I get Erykah playing it, like, okay, Jill wrote this, we starting a battle. Erykah, like, I'm gonna play it before you play it. Like, I'm the one that made it how you wrote the song, so I'm gonna play that first. So Erykah plays it all the way through. So okay, fine. We just starting. I don't think nothing of it. So then when Jill comes back and says, I'm gonna play it, which she's playing a version of her singing on it, it absolutely made, even though I was annoyed because it had taken so long, it did make sense. But one would think that she wouldn't play the entire song. She would have just played it through the hook, let her sing her hook, and then let's vamp on out of here and play something else. So that, to me, like, initially set the tone of, is this how this is gonna go?
Especially when it's like 15 minutes long.
And
like
it's
the live version.
Dude, like the live, extended live, and she was singing you could tell that was her jam now. But she was singing all the whole little outro that she had. She was doing the whole vamp. She had all her ad-libs. Like, she was not letting that ride till every drop of it played.
I came in after that. So if I saw that, I would have with some beef then, because you don't do that.
You would have known.
You want people to know that this was your song. It's kind of like when Whitney died and Dolly Parton was like, yeah, she made my song famous, and it's like, girl, please.
And they had the dialogue, like, I thought, but even there, see, I'm maybe because I'm be looking for shade. I ain't no shade gonna get past me. So even with that, Erykah was like, because I'm in this group on Facebook, and it's a friend, actually one of the filmmakers I met from Black Lens. Now that I think about it, she started the group. It's like a wine. She's selling wine, but she made like this discussion group since the since we've been at home, just trying to get, some dialogue going. So in the group, when it announced that this was going to happen, she started a discussion, and on that thread, one of the ladies came on there and was like, well, Erykah took Jill's whole style. Their issue is because Erykah stole Jill's whole style, the way she sang, the way she dressed, and it was just so like off the wall to me. And I'm like, well, what's the basis of that? Because I don't see it. Like they're even looking at them as artists now, like all of what she said, how they dress, they style, they talk. I'm like, Jilly from Philly, Erykah from Dallas. Like I just wasn't.
And Erykah's not even the same. She's not even the same artist she was in '97 anyway to even make that claim. So that's
right.
Kind of
so the girl,
random.
And I was confused. So I'm like, is there anywhere like, can you back this up? Like, where did that come from? So she's like, tell some people I know in the industry, and they whatever. So saying that to say, I was glad that Erykah made the point in saying when they brought the track to her that she didn't even know who Jill was, because she said, I came out before you.
So shady.
She's like, so when they brought me this, asking me would I do this hook, and they played it. So of course Jill is singing she's demoing it, but she wrote it, so she's singing on it. They come and play it, and she's like, oh, but she was like, I had no idea who this was with this voice. She wasn't down in her voice. It was like, yeah, it was dope. Why do I need to do it over? But it was like, yeah, because I didn't even know you. I never heard of you. I came out before you.
There's a very interesting history in terms of the Roots wanting to release "You Got Me" with Jill Scott on it, but the label Geffen at the time had some issues with that. They wanted someone with more star power, and of course, they knew their relationship with Badu, and that's why they reached out to her.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense from a logistical standpoint.
Yeah. So, of course, with Black Lens, Milwaukee Film, we talk about the relationship between movies and music. And one particular film I wanted to talk about was Dave Chappelle's Block Party. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people in this featured in this film, like Mos Def, Talib Kweli, The Roots, of course, Common, the Fugees. That was the Block Party that featured their big reunion at that time. So when you get to the point of the film where they play "You Got Me," or even leading up to that, where Jill Scott is watching Erykah perform from the green room, what did you make of those moments?
Like I said, for me, the big one was when they asked her, was she nervous? And she said no. And the way she said it was, absolutely not. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I do? Have you heard me? And for me, I was like, whoa, okay. And when they finally did perform, Jill performs in such a very in-your-face way that I think it threw people off, because if you didn't know she did the song, you were waiting for Erykah Badu to come out. And when she came out, you heard the applause. So I think that probably made Jill want to sing even harder and want to step up and say, look, she might have sung it, but I wrote it. And as a writer, sometimes you want the credit for writing some good music. Mm-hmm. And you want people to hear it the way you wrote it. And the way she wrote it was in her voice, not in Erykah's voice. So that's how I took it. And Erykah kind of just fell back like she ain't really had nothing to prove. But I think at that point, Jill Scott wanted her shine.
And I think it's interesting that same clip you mentioned about, her watching. She also was saying something prior to that in which she was saying that they get compared to each other a lot, but she was also saying like, but her energy, I can't do what she does and she can't do what I do, which that's kind of like the whole mentality that I like to carry, even watching the thing, like they both have their own thing going on, but individually and collectively, they're both dope. I definitely agree that she kind of did come in and overshadow things, but it probably was because of like what you said, and from a songwriter's perspective, if nobody knew who I was, if this is a song that I wrote and everybody sees somebody else's face, like I'm gonna feel some kind of way. I'm gonna want them to know, like, oh, that's great. Did you know it's supposed to go like this? That's definitely like the energy I would have carried in it too at that time. So I can definitely understand that. But yeah.
But if Erykah wouldn't have sung it, it wouldn't nobody know nothing, and wouldn't nobody care about it.
Mhm.
So I took it now from what I watched, because I just watched it before we got on here. I felt like their singing was more of a battle than they battle on verses.
Yep.
So I do agree with you. And Jill, when Erykah came on stage, because everybody was, the crowd went crazy. And she stood there and started singing. When Jill came back in, Jill was all extra, but then Erykah was getting right with her. It was like they was going, to me, they were battling at that. And I was like, woo, that's a lot. So Erykah was, she was hollering her little high notes, and Jill was doing like, it didn't get like noisy, but it was like borderline, but you could definitely tell it got to be I'm getting ready to show that I can blow, and I'm gonna show that I can blow, and I'm gonna show that I can blow. But they really were definitely going at it on that stage,
especially with how the camera was capturing them,
Yeah.
capturing that tension.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, this film came out in 2005. It premiered on the festival circuit and came out in theaters commercially in 2006. And I wanted to bring that up because it just it's really interesting to think about. You think of these two artists, and then also all the other artists that they corresponded with. Obviously you think of the Soulquarians,
Mm-hmm.
addition to the Roots, Common, Dilla, and then we mentioned Mos Def and Talib Kweli, John Legend, Kanye, emerging at the time. And and what's interesting too is that Dave Chappelle is the one who brings them all together.
Right.
And prior to this block party, he had featured a lot of them on
the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted the three of you to come and talk about this, one, I was very interested in your perspectives, about this particular episode of Versus, but I also wanted people to learn more about you all. So how did you all start performing, particularly in Milwaukee? When did you start performing publicly?
Ooh. Well, I always say I was born on the stage because I come from a very musical family. My grandparents, where I live now, is the original Bronzeville. My family has always been here. Both grandparents on both sides were musicians. My father's father was a jazz violinist. My father's mother played saxophone, and she also managed music. My father has been playing piano since he probably was about 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, for his whole life, he was either playing or in a band. And while my grandmother was alive, she was the one that was managing those bands. So for as long as I can remember, there always was a band rehearsing in my basement. There always was a studio around. There was always someone recording. So as soon as I was big enough to get on a mic, my daddy had me right in it. So like my first time doing Summerfest, I think I was like 10 or 11 with the band, with my dad's band. And it's been on since there. And at 10 or 11, just to tell you the songs that was like Mary J. That was the What's the 411 stuff, because that's what, came out when I was, coming into middle school, 6th grade. That's what was going on. So yeah, it's been and ever since then I always take my little hiatuses, but it's always something that I love, and it's something that, like I said, it's kind of like one of the things that I know very well, and I'm used to it. To this day, my dad still plays in like 3 different bands. He still performs, still travels. All my mother's brothers play multiple instruments, all sing, everybody does. My granddaddy and my mama's side was saxophone, horn, always played in bands, played for church and all that kind of stuff. So it's always been a ton of music around me. And when we're all together, even like with my siblings, they've never been on the stage. They both can sing. So together, my mother she did more in high school, so she never like pursued it. But if we all together as a family, it's gonna be a whole lot of singing and dancing going on because that's just what we do.
For sure.
Well, I started singing when I was really, really young. I'm originally from Detroit, so I used to always sing with my uncle, who's a professional musician. Moved to Milwaukee, and I was in like the African American Children's Theater. I was in this group called Mixed Generation when I was really, really young. Um, but as far as like performing with Black Elephant, a friend of mine was a poet named Lotus Divine. I'm sure some of y'all know Lotus.
I know Lotus.
Right.
Sure.
Just I had gotten an argument with my then boyfriend, and she was like, "Well, I have to go to this photo shoot for this thing, Soul Unseen, that I'm doing a poem for. Just come with me. Just come with me." And I was like, "Girl, I just need to get out." And I went to the photo shoot, and lo and behold, met all of the people who were taking their photos.
Yes.
And I said, "Well, who's in charge of this? This looks really, really professional." And they were like, "That guy over there," and I end up marrying that guy.
I was getting ready to say that had to be your husband because I'm like, Soul Unseen.
So I walked up to Gerard and I was like, "You don't know me, but I just came back from LA, and this is when my friends had just got signed to Cisco, and it was just a whole thing for me."
Oh, I was getting ready to say that because I remember that all y'all went to school together and all that. So, and you used to sing y'all sang together, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, we moved to LA, and two of the girls went on and ended up being in Cisco's group Lover.
Mhm.
And I came back home, and my uncle's in the the film industry. He's a filmmaker, so he was like, certain stuff you can't do. So I came back home and was kind of done with music, period. So I go to this photo shoot and I'm like, "Okay, this looks really, really professional. So who's in charge of this?" I meet Gerard and I was like, "You don't know me, but let me hit you with this Hot 16 real quick."
Hello?
He's like, "Okay, you're not on the project yet, but we're gonna put you on the project. Go take your picture." And if you look at Soul Unseen, there's a photo of me with my head wrap on. I had just met him maybe 5 minutes earlier, and he said, "Just go over there. We're gonna figure out what you're gonna do.
I love it.
We're gonna put you on the project." And that's how it happened. Literally, Damien was there, Bert
Mhm.
was there, everybody in the city. Obviously, Dante, you know.
Right.
So I mean, y'all were doing big things in such a young age. I mean, the photo shoot was so professional. I think Gerard was like 22. Y'all were so young, but had such a professional mentality, and that was
And creativity, like
Yep.
just the whole
and
wherewithal to pull that together.
the amount of talent y'all were able
Yeah.
to put together for one project.
Mm-hmm.
I had never seen any of these people in Milwaukee before because I had just come back, but everybody on the project was talented. So that's how I got started performing back in Milwaukee. It was literally because I was trying to, ease my mind from getting into an argument, and I just went somewhere with a friend.
Walked into a whole
Walked
album.
into a whole new life. So yeah, it was strictly by chance.
Yeah. You were on the interludes of Soul Unseen.
I was. That's how I ended up being on the interlude. He was like, "I don't know what you're gonna do. The
Get you
album's
in.
already done. We'll figure out something." And that's what it was.
That's
Now
dope.
understanding.
That is a cool story.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, and I want to hear more about this Love Her. I used to love them. I'm a huge
What?
Cisco fanatic, so that's really dope that it's such a small world, man.
Yeah, but I still talk to Marthea is one of my good friends. I still talk to
Yeah.
her to this day. So, but she was one of the girls in the group. So
Absolutely.
she's here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super cool. Oh, so much chalk history in the city. It's awesome. Well, I obviously am not having been around as long as everybody else. But it's really cool to learn about these backstories and everything because I know who all these folks are just from word of mouth and everything. So really interested in learning more about this as well. I myself, obviously, I've been doing music my whole life. Is also Robin said she came from musical families, kind of the same thing with me. I wasn't born in Milwaukee. I was born in Chicago. So that's where most of my roots are. Both of my parents met playing in the band. They reared me and my sisters kind of in music, different genres. We all do something musically. We moved to Milwaukee when I was 11, 12. So ever since then, kind of been dabbling in things. When I was in middle school, I actually performed at the Pabst Apollo that they used to have. Yeah.
Remember that?
They used to have this. They had it where I was actually, that was when Alicia Keys first came out too. So
Right.
I was actually playing stuff from songs in A minor, and I got to take that and go. They did Apollo at Summerfest. So it was me and a bunch of kids doing that too. So that was really cool. I went to Milwaukee High School of the Arts.
Hey.
Yes, yes. Got to major in all the music departments there. I went away for school. I got a couple of degrees, and then I came back in 2012, and that was really when things started to like kick up for me here locally. Nobody, anybody who may have known what I did when I was younger, none of that really mattered. You know, like it was when I came back and I was like, okay, I'm an adult. You know, I have an album that I had put out when I was still in grad school earlier that year, 2012. So then when I moved back to Milwaukee, that's when I hooked up with some of my other friends who were here who were already established, like Classic, and started going to the studio with them and collaborating with them. And actually, I credit him a lot to kind of putting me on the local scene, because if it weren't for the collaborations and features that he allowed me to do, people really wouldn't start to kind of know who I was initially. So I really appreciated that. From there, just kept fostering those same relationships. Played in a band that was here called Foreign Goods, with a bunch of different musics in our collective. And then in 2016, I released my sophomore project. And because of all the work that I had started doing, you know, leading up to that, it started to get a little bit more attention. So that's kind of when things picked up smoke for me, was around that time. And this is who she is. This is who Be Free is. This is what she does. The Journal Sentinel picked up on the album. I got to open up for Janelle Monáe at Summerfest in 2018.
We were there. We saw you.
Yay! Oh my God, that was so fun.
It was a nice show.
Yes, yes. I've also done some curating in the city. I put some shows together. I had the opportunity of doing a wonderful show with Groove Theory for 2017's film festival show. And I
that
also
was the
got
first one.
Yeah, yeah. And Robin was there with me too. And I also got to curate the show for the Uncovered series called MJ Uncovered, that was at Turner Hall. So
That was so dope.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have pretty much dabbled in all
like
of that.
I wanted you to do that again. Like that's one of that's one of my
man.
favorite shows that I've ever gone to. Like it was so
I want to do it again.
dope.
Yeah, and I love stuff like that. I love stuff like this because, like Element said, you have no real people still don't have really real idea about the amount of talent that we have here from across the board. Not just musically. Like there's so much talent in every avenue of art here in the city. So any opportunity that we have to showcase that and really put that in the forefront, I love to be a part of. So that's my story.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing those stories. So Element met her husband when he was organizing Soul Unseen, organizing the photo shoot. I met him in the spring of 1997. We were in a film history course taught by Pat Mellencamp, and we kept in touch over time. He was at that time in the film department. We were taking like basic 1, basic 2 filmmaking, basic video, and all that stuff. And he was, sometimes I would, come work on his projects and things like that. And then he shifted over to journalism, advertising, media studies, and all of that. But over time, we kept in touch, and he had the idea of coming up with Scope. And Scope is what really, launched, that Soul Unseen project, because a lot of them came to the open mics at the 8 No Coffee House. And then in turn, we would go to the open mics throughout the city at 21, 22, just to get an idea of, what the scene was like, and, see if they wanted to come through, UWM, to see what these college students were doing. And lo and behold, it manifested into Soul Unseen, which manifested into Black Elephant. And, it's important that I note that Gerard and I met in a film history course, because, all these years later, we're doing Black Lens.
Wonderful.
Came full circle.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And Dante was also like honestly like the fourth member of Black Elephant. You were everywhere with us. It was like Dante, you sold more product than we did for the band. So I mean, Dante was like the fourth member. Dante knew all the songs. He knew everything that was going on. Dante would get the music popping. Dante was getting people up and out their seat and get them close.
Listen here.
You know how it is.
First of all, we was like, we got shirts, like we was like
Right.
Black Elephant groupies. And we knew all me and my you ain't us. What?
y'all used to wild out.
Listen here.
Wildin'.
Listen, Black Elephant used to be like the coldest shit. So be free to give you. So Black Elephant, the band of Black Elephant was Cigarette Break.
Yeah.
So the front of Black Elephant has gone on in their lives. Although they still out here getting, they still out here getting it.
That's right.
Yeah, he ain't gonna put he not gonna put the mic down.
He gonna put the brakes on it.
No.
But I think it's interesting that all of us know you. And even though you're not a musician,
right,
to my knowledge, you love music, and you and Gerard know how to be around good music. So even when Dante, and Robin, you can attest to this, when Dante would bring the mixtapes, when he would pop the mixtapes at the show, hey, this is a Dante mix, you knew you was going home to listen to it because you know Dante knows music.
Oh yeah.
So
even to this day,
I always appreciated your the variety of music that you would put on to the CDs that you would give people, and some very obscure music by artists that I thought I knew until I listened to one of the mixes that you put together. So I just appreciate your support throughout all these years, and you've turned me on to some people who music I really didn't care for after I heard a song or two of theirs on your mixtape. So
oh man, listen, Dante, I don't even understand how he even what his ear even does with music. But it's like, to your point, it's like it'll be either it's a song or something you would have never heard from that artist, or an artist that you may not have otherwise heard of or listened to, and then you'd be like, wait a minute, well, let me do some digging, or let me do some more. But no, he definitely is a music head, I guess you can say.
Right. You told me you were doing this, so I was like, I would expect nothing less from Doc.
That's really sweet of y'all. Thank you. Be free. I don't really press the CDs anymore, but you know, and learning more what they're talking about, you could follow me on Apple Music or Spotify.
Yeah, I'm like, he's still making them lists. He just do it in the 2020 way now.
Nice.
Because I walk around with the CDs and I hand them out, and they're like, "What am I gonna play?"
I still got a nice stack of them CDs.
I came across some Dante mixes for sure.
Yeah.
I can check this out.
For sure, check it out. Yeah, Dante McFadden, Boom Bap, Dr. Dante.
Boom Bap.
Yeah, that's right. That's the kind of hip hop that I love. But that's really sweet of y'all. Thank you very much. I guess we could wrap this conversation up by just talking about what the music of Jill Scott and Erykah Badu means to you.
For me, I think, like I was saying, when Jill Scott, Erykah, and India came out, it was at a point in my life where I needed all three of them for different reasons.
Yeah.
Jill was just that bridge between righteous and ratchet. And Erykah was that bridge between righteous and experimental. You didn't know what you were going to get from her, and she could go way out, or she could show you the other side of the dope game, where you got a wife, you got a kid, but you still, the work ain't honest, but you got to pay the bills.
Hello.
She could go far out. and she could bring it back in a way that you could understand, just like Jill could vocally go places that you did not expect her to be able to go, and then she could bring it back to something that was really familiar. And I think both of them have something in them that everybody can relate to when they're on their conscious vibe, but then something they can relate to when they're on their Crown Royal on Ice vibe too. So I think that's why people love them, because they have something for everybody. And that's what makes you love Jill Scott and Erykah Badu.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me, it's a few things. What I started to say, and similar to what Element said, I think the time that they came out, thinking about even how old I was then, in my 20, 21, before I had my first child to when I had my first child, and he's about to be 22 this year, so he's 21 and a half, and being in college and going through relationships and things, so being able to relate to the music. And then two very, very strong Black women, very different though, very different backgrounds, very different stories, but giving us music that we all can relate to. Erykah, like I said probably several times here, I definitely have gravitated more to Erykah, even personally, because I'm just one of those people, like if I'm a fan, then I want to know you. I want to know about you. I want to know, and I'm going to probably connect more based on how I feel like you can connect to me, because I can receive that song better. Like, yeah, you might have wrote it, but that's my life. So Erykah, even like with her kids and her kids, yeah, I'm the one. I got the kids by the local celebrities and the two baby fathers, and being very proud of it, and having these great relationships with these men, and having the kids by Andre 3000 and DLC and all, and what the world can perceive to be a way. Erykah just holding that in stride, like, no, that don't make me. And I love my kids, and I love their daddies, and they all have their names. And this is what I'm gonna show, and I'm gonna stand, and I'm gonna own it. I'm not embarrassed by it, and anybody who feel away, fuck them. So I think that's one thing that definitely makes me love Erykah, aside from me loving her music, but just loving her as a woman and as a person and as a mother, from what I've seen and been able to learn from her over the years. And then Jill, she's just an amazing, she's an amazing talent, an amazing, amazing voice, beautiful singer, beautiful woman. And I'm even a fan of Jill acting. Like, she's a great actress. And we didn't even touch on that today, but you have some people that get in movies just because of other positions that they have. But I think Jill has done very well when she's got on the screen. So I'm actually a fan of her and movies that she's been in. So that's who they are to me.
I think, other than the reasons that I mentioned in the beginning about, how I was introduced to them, one of the things that's stuck with me about both women throughout observing their careers has been their versatility. Erykah especially, I think that the person that she was perceived to be when she started or was brought to the forefront in 97, she's never stayed completely rooted in that as she's developed with her music, and rightfully so. Because as a musician, as you guys probably know, people have a tendency of putting you in a box, especially if it's a box that they discovered you in, and they want you to stay there for their own comfort level. Erykah has never really seemed to care much about trying to pander to a specific crowd when it comes to her level of artistry and creativity from album to album. And that's something that I definitely saw around the time that Worldwide Underground came out and everything from there. I'm like, she is really just making whatever she is physically compelled to do. And I aspire to do things like that myself. And I was like, if she can do something like that, then why can't I? Why can't I, follow that same similar path? Why can't I just go with what moves me? Jill, Lord, I say all the time, she is my top 6. She is like the end all be all for a lot of things. I really do believe that because of the fact that she's done so much, that makes me believe that I can. because as being a plus size woman, especially being a plus size woman of color, like we have to have examples showing us that, you know, you don't have to be a certain status quo to, you know, to do this, to wear that outfit or to make this music or to be in that film. So seeing that constant example from around the time where I was being reared, like through puberty, and that was really important for me to see. So developing along with her and seeing that has just pretty much gave me a sound example in life. And I really appreciate both women for that. And to kind of close up the thing about the battle on Saturday, I forgot to mention this too. Like, there definitely was a level of expectancy that we had with seeing all the other verses, if that's correct plural form. But I was feeling like shit. I'm sorry, I was feeling like I was not it that night. It was a whole bunch going on that week, towards the end of the week. All the stuff with Ahmad came out. His birthday was the day before. So I woke up feeling extremely heavy. It was raining that day. So it was really nice to see the reminders of why I fell in love with each of these women and their artists kind of take me out of that mode, you know, and center me into the vibe that was being created. And that's what I really felt happened with a lot of folks that were watching. Like a lot of people were feeling the same way. Like we collectively were allowed to like decompress, you know, from the woes of everything that we were all experiencing mentally and emotionally leading up to the weekend. So I really appreciate both of them for having the ability to even do that with their art.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like what you mentioned, you know, what happened throughout that week with the release of that video, and a bit of a sigh of relief with the, you know, with those two men being arrested. I mean, this is going to be a long ordeal for us, that we can't take our eyes off anytime soon. But with that said, you also had that same Saturday learning about the deaths of Andre Harrell and Little
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was a heavy week.
Little Richard.
Mm-hmm.
We lost Andre Harrell, Little Richard, Betty Wright. Oh, it was all back to back.
Yeah.
Somebody else I'm missing.
I don't know if you guys are into magic, but we lost Roy.
Roy from Sigma. Yeah, it was a lot.
Oh,
like
wow.
it was a lot of it was a
Jerry
lot.
Jerry Stiller died this
Yeah,
weekend.
it was a lot.
Yeah.
But in this for that, like Andre Harrell was like a big one because that canceled because Babyface was gonna do the Waiting to Exhale thing on Sunday for Mother's Day, and he was just like, I can't do it right now and be 100%. And I was just like bawling, like I feel you, baby. Like we don't feel slighted. We know you're not playing us. Like I can only him, like Puffy. Like Andre Harrell is like a lot of them wouldn't even be if it wasn't for that man. And he's so young. So that's devastating.
Yeah. So, you know, I just think you know, listening to the songs, you know, just you know, really alleviated, you know, a lot of that distress that we were feeling, you know, throughout the day, throughout that week. I mean, pretty much the whole time we've been in quarantine. We've been on lockdown for a long 8 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And who knows what it's going to look like, you know, once we have this, you know, once we have this, you know, once we have this transition, you know, back into, can't quite say the way things were, but, you know, just go out in public and, you know, making sure that you have your mask so, you know, you don't get mean mugs and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I was, you know, very happy to, you know, have seen this and, you know, just, you know, to end my Saturday night listening to both their music and then also reminding, you know, me of, you know, how I came into their music. Because, you know, as I was listening to their songs, particularly their early albums, you know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know, more so than Babyface versus Teddy Riley or the RZA versus DJ Premier, you know, these the song, the songs from those albums, like I was heavy into that world. Element, Robin, you mentioned, just all the live shows that you all.
Juniors.
I was at all the spoken word, poetry showcases, all the open mics and things like that. Jill Scott, Erykah Badu, their music played throughout. So that's the takeaway for me. Just in terms of what cultivated the work that I do today. My taste in music, and what I try to put people onto, whether it's with regards to music, whether it's regards to films, anything with regards to popular culture, and the battle. Even though it was quite long, nonetheless, it was a trip down memory lane, and it was also, really astounding to see, how these women, how the directions that their careers have gone within the last couple of decades. And interestingly enough, 2020 marks the 20th anniversaries of both Mama's Gun and Who Is Jill Scott, Words and Sound.
Nice.
And to go to the like they call the verses effect, clearly that's what it did for everybody, because all their three, I think both of them, it was 3 apiece that are in like the top 40 of what's been played for this week. So ever since verses, everybody went back playing their albums. Like, oh, I need to go listen. I put some numbers, some spins on there. I definitely have been listening to them all week. So it was definitely a trip down memory lane. And I like to the point of the quarantine, I think that that's one blessing of it all, because we are getting more access to people that we may be fans of, even if it's what D-Nice is doing, because we're all locked in the house. So they've been celebrities, we've been fans, but they can't go anywhere, they can't tour. So the fact that they're taking the time to just be, whether they're doing the battle or doing a concert or DJing or whatever, we're getting access that we typically wouldn't have. For free, at least.
And that's the thing that bugs me sometimes about people writing in the comments, yo, why didn't you play this? Why didn't you play that? Yo, play this song, play that song. Yo, fall back. They're providing a service.
Yep.
They're not paying
for free.
Yeah, so with that said, be free. Element, Robin, thank you very much for taking part in the first ever virtual conversation facilitated by Black Lens.
Thank you. Hey.
Thank you for having us.
We got people to do this
gang,
with.
gang.
Happy to see the 3 of you safe and healthy where you are. For those of you still with us, thank you very much for watching. If you're not already, you can follow us at Black Lens MKE on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to find out upcoming events we are hosting, at least virtually for the time being. So thank you once again. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, Milwaukee Film. Thank you to the Black Lens team. Thank you to the Black Lens Council. You all take care.